Grace, I'm Dr. Jordan. I am not the usual type of doctor. I do no cutting open. Don't worry, I am a doctor of the mind. Are you afraid of me, Grace?
No, I cannot say I'm scared of you yet.
This is for you. Aren't you gonna eat it?
No, not yet.
Why not, Grace?
Because then it would be all gone.
Can you tell me what that is, Grace?
An apple?
What does an apple make you think of?
Apple pie.
Ah, something you eat.
I would hope so, sir. That's what an apple pie is for.
Is there any kind of apple you should not eat?
I know he is referring to the apple of the tree of knowledge, but I will not oblige.
So tell me about your life.
My family is from Ireland. There were a lot of us. Mother and father really had their hands full. My father was a stonemason, but his reputation was slowly declining. He was an alcoholic, and when he drank, he hit my mother. We began to have to rely on my aunt, but eventually, she and my uncle decided to give us money to emigrate to Canada. We said goodbye and got on a boat with all our luggage. My mother died on that boat, so I covered her in a sheet and they threw her overboard. When we arrived in Canada, we rented a room in the back of a house. I cooked and cleaned while my father drank all our money away. Finally, I had to go out and find a job to support myself. I found myself working at Mrs. Alderman Parkinson's. There, I met Mary Whitney, and we became fast friends. I shared a bed with her, and she taught me everything. Life was great. We often had visits from Jeremiah the peddler, who sold many things that I would save my wages for. He was really nice. However, everything turned around when one day Mary suddenly seemed different. After a while, I knew that she was in the family way. She knew that in this condition she could no longer work as a servant, so she found a doctor who would help her. And I went with her to this doctor, but I felt uneasy about it. When we went home that night, I let her sleep on the bed, while I slept on the floor beside her. I knew that she could not sleep, but eventually I did. When I woke up and tried to wake Mary up, she wouldn't budge. I shook her, but when I lifted the blanket up, the bed was covered in blood. She was dead. Cook told me that because I did not open the window, Mary's soul would not be able to go to heaven. This scared me. I thought I heard Mary say, "Let me in," which confused me because I thought she was trying to get out of the window. After this, I went into a deep sleep. I must have woken up, but I cannot remember. Eventually, I went back to sleep. After this, I can remember again. With Mary dead, I knew that everyone would ask me what I knew, which was very little. But I knew I needed to find a new job, so I switched from place to place. While I was working for a shoemaker, Nancy Montgomery visited her friend who was a fellow servant there. She invited me to go work with her at Mr. Kinnear's house in Richmond Hill. So there I went, and there I met James McDermott and Jamie Walsh. McDermott was a brute, always trying to seduce me, a ruffian. Jamie Walsh was a dear boy who seemed to fancy me. McDermott really hated Nancy Montgomery because she was just a servant like us, but acted and was treated like she was so much better. One day, Jeremiah the peddler came and told me that he sensed something was very wrong. It was strange because I had had that same feeling. He offered to take me to the States, away from Mr. Kinnear's house. He said he would come back for my answer. I considered this offer, but never got a chance to make the decision. One day, Nancy gave McDermott his notice that he was to leave at the end of the month. He was so angry that he said he was going to kill that slut. He said that she and Mr. Kinnear slept together, and said I was so ignorant not to know that. At first, I believed that it was just angry talk. But after a while, I realized that Nancy's bed was never slept in. Then I overheard Nancy talking to Mr. Kinnear about giving me my notice too. And I was furious because I had done nothing wrong. When Mr. Kinnear went to Toronto one week, McDermott said that he would kill Nancy in the night. And I told him not to do this, because when Mr. Kinnear was away, I slept with Nancy in her bed, and that he might kill me instead. He reluctantly agreed. He said he would kill her in the morning then. When I woke up, I remember going up to my room to change. I don't remember anything after that, until McDermott told me not to tell Kinnear what he has done. He also told me to aid him in the murder of Kinnear, but I refused. I went outside to do the laundry, where I heard a gunshot. I rushed back to find McDermott throwing the body of Mr. Kinnear into the cellar. He tells me not to tell anyone, threatening me with a gun. He fired, then I fainted. I can't remember anything, but Jamie Walsh testified at the trial that I was up and well at that time. After this, McDermott and I went to Toronto. We were very afraid that people would recognize our horse and rig. The next morning, we boarded a ferry to the States. As soon as we got across the border, the police came and took us back to Canada and put us in prison. We were put on trial. McDermott got hanged and I too was sentenced to be hanged. But when Mr. Mackenzie, my lawyer, pleaded my extreme youth and my being female, I was allowed to live. Most interesting. Hello, Grace. I am Dr. DuPont.
It's Jeremiah the Battler.
Today I'm going to hypnotize you and ask you a few questions. I will do my very best to answer them, sir. Are you asleep, Grace? Yes. And you can hear me? Yes. When you wake, you will remember nothing of what has done you. Grace, picture the cellar, go back in time, descend in space. Yes! Along the hallway, lift the trapdoor, go down the cellar stairs. The barrels, the whiskey, the vegetables, and the boxes full of sand. There, on the floor. Yes, I was in the cellar. Did you see Nancy there? Yes. Was she alive, Grace? She was partly alive, or partly dead. She needed to be put out of her misery.
Did you help to strangle her?
It was my kerchief that strangled her. Hands held it. She had to die. The wages of sin is death. And this time, the gentleman died as well for once. Share and share alike.
Oh, Grace, I've thought better of you. All this time you've deceived us.
Stop talking rubbish. You deceived yourselves. I'm not Grace. Grace knew nothing about it.
If you're not Grace, then who are you? Not Mary Whitney.
I told James to do it. I urged him to. I was there all along. What do you mean by there? Here, with Grace, where I am now. It was so cold lying on the floor and I was all alone. I needed to keep warm. But Grace doesn't know. She's never known. They almost hanged her, but that would have been wrong. She knew nothing. I only borrowed her body. She's gone. I'm going to bring you back now, Grace. I must have been asleep.
Do you remember anything?
No, I was asleep, but I must have been dreaming. I dreamt about my mother. She was floating at sea. She was at peace. Dear Dr. Jordan, you left suddenly after the hypnosis. I just wanted to see if you were alright. I am also writing to tell you that I have been pardoned and released. I am moving to the States to marry my old friend, Jamie Walsh. I hope that in the future you will be as happy as I am. Yours, Grace Marks.